Today is February 7th, 2023. This is the Hannah City Village Council meeting. I ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. Moment of silence will be a little longer this evening. Former board member and village clerk Deb Gibson passed away. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Ron is the only one.
Ron, see you're online. Are you here just to listen, or are you have some input?
Just here to see your smiling faces.
Thank you, Ron. Everybody should have received a copy of our previous minute meetings from January 17, 2023. Entertain a motion to approve the previous minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Sidak, second by Terravali. Any further discussion or corrections? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same. Motion carried. Treasurer's report. Everybody should have a copy of it. Sandra, is there anything outstanding or weird this time?
Nope.
You guys will notice there's a big $39,000 payment in there. That was for the lift station.
I to ask about that. Is it just showing up now?
Yeah, it's just Country Air lift station. Probably got the invoice for it. So,
And that's ARPA money.
I'll make a motion to approve the treasurer's report and pay all the outstanding bills.
I have a motion by Terravali.
Second.
Second by Sidak. Any further discussion? We'll roll call that. Weaver?
Yes.
Miller?
Yeah.
Pearson?
Yes.
Terravali?
Yes.
Sidak?
Yes.
Motion carries. Mr. Lott, engineer's report, sir.
It's been a long day. I will give it a shot.
Yeah, just heads up, it's a little bit later in your packet. I think there's one thing ahead of it. I put it on, the vote is underneath the committee reports, but I asked Brandon to kind of give you an overview of the MFT program that we've been working on. But there's details in your packet. It's just a little farther down.
Is the entire, is the map in there? I guess
It is.
Okay, I'll still hold it up, the whole packet. Okay, the first thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is the 2020, 3-24, it's the fiscal year beginning in May and ending at the end of April, 23-24 for your MFT program. Again, this is state money and some federal money passed through the state that each community gets for your road fund maintenance. And communities, small communities, sometimes that's all they have. Larger communities, of course, and yourselves also have general funds as well. But this is the annual program that we've been working on. We are entering year 3, is that correct, of 5?
This is year 3.
Of the long-term or 5-year plan that was prepared 3 years ago, to be able to use that money wisely into a rotating schedule to address each of your streets. Each year you receive about $50,000. It's based by population and the total gallons sold in the state. So it's a little bit of a moving target, but it's gone from mid-30s to about $50,000 a year that you're getting monthly checks on for road funds. You also have the last bit of the Rebuild Illinois, which is about $27,000 this year. So you've got $80,000 this year, and then you have about 100 in MFT funds, I think is your balance right now, and then about 100 in general. Is that correct?
Yeah, I can tell you specifically here in a second.
So you've been managing your money well. And what we often do is kind of try to bank some of that so that we can do larger projects every few years as needed.
So the MFT balance is 109, and the street savings is 354.
And so not going to get into too much detail. The plan was to tackle this first 5 years of the program, do all the streets, then maybe see if you necessarily need to do them all. Lesser used roads, alleys, these sorts of things could be done less, and bank larger projects like how we did Main Street and other streets that may warrant that. So this year, some of the last year, we're trying to get it out early. Can't spend the money until the fiscal year 1st of May, but you can certainly get it submitted to IDOT, get it approved, begin to get quotes from contractors early on their schedule like we did last year to get more competitive bids. For a while there, smaller projects like this, we're seeing one number. And it was competitive, but it's one number. So last year we got ahead of it and we were able to get 2, and we actually got really good numbers from a new contractor that I believe everybody was pretty happy.
Absolutely.
So trying to do the same thing this year. With that said, I want to present to you essentially this fiscal year's program, which, and again, what we do is we look at the streets that we'd like to do. That map is in there. Quantify those, put together an estimate of the costs there. Then we add some contingencies, the engineering costs, and then you approve a number that's 10% larger than that. That way, if for any reason something was to happen, you don't have to go back and reapprove your program. You've got some fluff in there. So your ordinance is for $95,500 is be your program this year. But the intent is to spend about $86,705. So you've got a buffer.
In the packet, the third to last page in red is the streets that'll be done this year, and then the very last page gives you an idea of what we've done year 1, 2, and 3, and what we plan to do year 4 and 5.
Exactly. So the third to last and last page show the red of this year, and then the red converted to green, I guess, for the large program. So you can see the intent is to get all of the city streets, village streets, in a 5-year program. And that's going to move around a little bit depending on pricing, and maybe one has a rough year or is, needs to be reprioritized. But as you've gotten through into year 3 of 5, it's stayed pretty consistent to what you had planned. Yep.
We're actually a little ahead of the game, I think, as we now depends on pricing. But if we look out for the next couple of years, we'll probably be in the $60,000-$70,000 range, assuming things go as we'd like.
You won't be getting the rebuild money, so we're hopeful it does come down a little bit, so you don't have to either get into your reserves, whether they be MFT reserves or general fund reserves.
Yeah, that's a good point. We have 47 roughly and 27
Illinois rebuild, so 80 plus. So we put $60,000 away annually for streets. So roughly 50, I think we looked at it, 53, 54 this year is going to be going into savings for future street projects. So almost everything this year is going to be funded by active money.
So this year, and just for reference, last year you approved $92,000, so it's a little bit more. You're doing a little bit more, and then the prices, of course, are a little bit higher. Now, last year you did more than seal coating in your program. You had $10,000 sidewalk replacement. You did not include that in your MFT program this year. It's purely streets, seal coating streets. A few more for a few more dollars, so $95,500. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but the next step would be for the board to consider that passing an ordinance to spend that money. If you agree to do that, then what we'll do is get some signatures, send it down to IDOT, get their approval, signatures, get it back here, go out to bid, and be ready, raring to go May 1st. And spend the money.
Put the vote under the streets committee under Rod. The something I was going to say.
Well, there's only one section we have to pay to get relined to. In front of the Park District.
Oh, the parking lot. Yeah.
Oh, the little parking lot. Yeah, it's in your right of way. It's road and or parking lot. But yeah, you would seal that as part of this. Certainly eligible for these funds. Yep. And we had done, of course, Main Street. We did it with the asphalt when we did the street. But this would be seal coated.
We're looking at getting this done in the summertime, right?
Oh yeah.
Can't do it with rain or snow or anything.
No, you can't. And again, you can't spend the money till May, but you want to get on their list and be able to award it so that, as we found out 2 years ago and learned last year, they fill up quickly to be competitive, and the later you do it, the less competitive the contractors tend to be. So, yeah, I don't remember exactly when they did it last year. It was earlier, but it wasn't.
July-ish, August, time frame, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, in the years past when we've done this, we've always sort of waited to the last minute until we were ready, basically until the fiscal year started. In doing so, then that handcuffed us from being able to get out and get bids, because by then contractors are already getting full. They don't want to do a job this small. They're looking for the bigger jobs, to help them out. So this way, when we get it out early, we can attract those people that will be able to give us some competitive bids also. We're not catching, we might have time or we might not have time for this. So this way, at least we'll get a dedicated time and contractor that'll be definitely worth it.
Don't we have several driveways that have like the first 10 feet or 16 feet or 12 feet? They're
It
the
would
same as
depend
the
on the
road.
right of way. I don't know how far do they generally do the aprons to the right of way?
We have some, the bank and a few others that we do.
But is that the homeowner's responsibility to pay for that?
On the residential side, I think it is, but we do have some businesses where we do have some things that we take care of. Not a bunch, but
I just didn't know if it was possible when that's going to make it an option.
for them to do it.
Well, yeah, even if the residents still have to pay for it, I just mean while they're out and doing it.
We can. I mean, we definitely communicate in advance that it's coming and what streets are coming and so forth. And so if the homeowner wanted to do something, I suppose they could at the same time.
I don't know how that would work billing wise, but
Yeah, I would tap the contractor on the shoulder during the walkthrough, and I wouldn't tell that off.
Yeah, because that's something, and I'm glad you brought this up, Jeff, because that would be something that I would be interested in next year when they do Second Street, is because pretty much from there to the sidewalk, part of it's gravel, part of it's grass, part of it's mud. So, trying to get a base, find out what I would need to do to get a steady base in there ahead of time, so if they came out, what they would need.
they're doing my street this year. So yeah, that's what I was noticing.
The only other thing, Rod, I don't know if you want to add anything at all. But for some of the newer board members, years ago, the county would do this. And they had their crews, and they did a lot of the smaller communities very competitively. But they don't do that anymore, and it's been quite a while. That really sort of changed the game.
The other question I would ask is it those projects, is that something that our crew is capable of handling? And then the question would be, how would they get paid for that?
Well, it's it's both materials and labor. Yeah. So some of those things, we would include the materials in the program, but the labor would come out of general. For something like this, though, I don't know that you have the equipment to do seal coating.
Yeah. No, because you need a big spreader.
Right. Because and then I guess you could pay for the materials out of general funds, but I don't know why you would.
I guess I was just trying to think.
I would think you'd have a hard time getting a contractor to do driveways. Because
It'd be too hard.
that's handwork, and it's a different process than just
Laying the
driving
oil and
down.
going down,
Yeah.
driving the rock.
They were willing to do like the parking out in front of here last year, but it was just another strip that they moved over and
But to
did.
try and do driveways and then have to worry about collected from
Sure.
one homeowner
Yeah,
to
because
the
it's
next
more-
one. You could check with them, but I don't think they'll do it.
I didn't know if it was, a collective way to save money or not. Yeah. If 100 people wanted to do it.
So,
Prepay.
There you go. Brian and I don't have anything else on this topic. We'll address it later, but if there are any questions or.
Yeah, I'm just excited. I mean, we're this year we'll be over half. We get this year done, we'll be over halfway, and 2 years to go, and every street will be touched. And then we have a different decision to make, I think, in terms of whether they need it again every 5 years or how we do it differently. Then the money we're setting aside, we have 350,000 now. So at the end of the year, we may have 400,000 in streets, and that's really being set aside in case we have to go over to Murphy or someplace that's really damaged and grind it up and start over. And even if we did that, 400,000 is going to go pretty quick.
Can we not point that same money at sidewalks? Can we point that same money at
We
sidewalks? Or
can,
is that
yeah.
a different-
Anything that's in that street fund, we can do either sidewalks or roads with. Yeah, absolutely. Now on the MFT side, we have to declare that in advance so that it gets approved for that.
Just when we get to the end of our 5-year run, if we notice they make it 10 years without seal coat or something.
And your MFT program used to be smaller but more complicated. Is that fair? You would put road salt in there because it's material. You can have street signs, so you put small allowances for these sorts of things, which is fine. And you can, but $1,000 in your MFT program, or is that something that's maybe okay for general? And sidewalks, like last year, you did that. So it's maintenance and labor, materials and labor for maintenance of your road and sidewalk facilities is what's eligible for this. Sometimes we can, play games, but be creative with drainage. If it's a road-related drainage project, we can sometimes get some storm sewer in there, but you wouldn't go say sewer in neighborhood or something like that.
I haven't been told we have an issue in front of the post office. I don't know if I brought that up before. A few people have told me winter icy periods, it's really bad in front of the post office. I don't know if there's a spot where water sits.
Street or sidewalk,
I think both.
Okay.
I think it kind of puddles up there. And I know there's, I talked to Buster about too, so people are always walking out and around because it's so bad right in front of there. I don't know personally if the water's sitting there, if it's a drainage issue or not, but there always seems to be more ice there than anywhere else.
I'll have Roger look into that.
Who's done the streets the last 2 years? The same company? Or
No, the first year it was
UCM has done it for quite a
last
while.
year it was Porter Brothers.
Yeah, but and they have their territories. Obviously, you don't want to go a long way for a little bitty job, but if they get out ahead of it, get several of them, and make that sort of trip coming down here was worth their while. And last year I didn't know of them. I heard good things, but I was glad to hear that you were pleased with
Yeah, they did
their
nice
work
work.
as well.
They did a really good job.
So I'd be curious to see if there's less of a gap this year.
Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right?
Nope, not at all.
That competition drives
Yep.
the price, and that's what we want. To Roger's credit, he got out. He pushed us to get it out in advance, and we worked to talk to several different contractors to see if they were willing to bid. So,
100%. I should have led with that, and I'll end with that. So that's all I have on MFT.
thank you.
Do you have anything under the IEPA?
I do. This one's a little more fuzzy and complicated. And I'll try real quick. So the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency does a lot of things. They regulate some things, but they also have programs to help communities get infrastructure done. The SRF, or the State Revolving Fund, what it is federal money that's passed through the states to help applicants fund infrastructure projects. There's water, which is the stuff we drink, and wastewater, which is the stuff we don't. And they're two separate funds and two separate programs and two separate divisions of the EPA, but there are opportunities for communities every year to get in this revolving fund. So it's money that continues every year. There's a bunch of money and it goes out to the communities that are in line for it for eligible projects. But recall that it is federal money. We always look at opportunities to fund these projects. You need a $2 million water tower. You need a $1 million water plant. wastewater, sewers, these sorts of things. And communities sometimes don't have that money. So these things are available. And then whether it be grants or whether USDA, there are opportunities out there, as you guys I know have been learning. There's never free lunch. There's always something. And the revolving fund it's been around for a long time, but it takes a lot of patience and determination to get there. And you've done it before. Your existing sewers, we were lining those. It was 09. I think it was 09. And I don't remember how much you borrowed. It was like right at 600, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, with the forgiveness, I think it came down to about that range. Yeah.
And so it's a 20-year loan. Was it 1 point something?
1.5.
1.5%. So it's a pretty good rate for a 20-year loan. And so that's why you write a, $30,000 check to the EPA twice a year?
I don't think it's quite that much,
Okay.
but something like that.
But twice a year, you make your biannual payment to the EPA, and you will for another 8 years, something to that effect. 6 years?
Maybe.
Exactly. This is true. So that's what's out there and available to you, and it's always available to you. Now, whether or not you get it or not is another story. And then, Brian, maybe you can speak even smarter to some of this. Lately, in the last dozen years or so, it changes a little bit. There is forgiveness available sometimes. It's not automatic. The interest rates move around a little bit. I don't expect they'll go down.
Well, what's crazy is I spoke with a lady. Let me back up, and I was gonna cover this under my report, but I want to give Roger some credit. Roger went to some training.
Good for him.
And was sitting there listening to the speaker, and the speaker was bragging about how much additional money they had, and that the rates were like 0.93 at the moment, which they're going to change again in July, so they'll probably go up. But the other thing he spoke about was that the forgiveness rates seem to be more aggressive. That water was now at 50% and sewer was at 30%. And when I spoke to him, I was skeptical because I'm like, well, I've talked to these people 1,000 different times. But I called the lady, and she's like, no, it's real. I mean, we've got additional funding coming in and so forth. So that got me excited, and she sent me all the paperwork. I sent it to you, and that's how we got here.
Exactly. So it's a bit of a moving target, but right now it's very attractive, and it's never not been attractive. It's borrowing money. You'd rather be given money, but borrowing money and having some of it forgiven is an attractive thing to have happen. And so these programs are out there. But when I say there's no free lunch, it's because it takes, and we do a lot of these. It takes about a year to get in line, to go through all the steps, to get your project approved, and then sign on the dotted line to borrow the money. It's federal money, so there's a lot of hoops to jump through. We can jump through them, and I think you're in a unique position now to have an interest and ability to jump through some of these. There's so much paperwork that's required, but you guys might be interested in doing some of that and not paying us to do it, to be honest. So there's a deadline of March 31st, and it used to be called a pre-application, which was a one-page piece of paper that said, we're interested. And you threw that in your name in the hat, and you couldn't get the funding without having that in there, but it was just putting your name in the hat. And then you went through all the steps. There's not much to that. I brought one with me. It's different now. It's a nomination form is now what they call it. So it's 2 pages of instructions, 2 pages long now. So it's fairly simple to submit, and the deadline is 31st for
March 31st.
March 31st for what would likely be 2024 funding. This year ends on July 1st, and there's no way in God's green earth you'd be submitted for that funding cycle. You've got.
And you submit one or two if you have.
They're separate projects. They're totally separate.
One for water,
Okay.
one for sewer.
If you were to do it, you would submit one for water, public water supply, and one for water pollution control.
And what are the costs on these?
The form, yeah, exactly. And so the submission of this thing, the immediate, got to do it by March 31st. It's 2 pages, a 2-page piece of paper. Certainly I could do this within our general contract that we have for me to be here tonight. To then go forward with the loan program, which includes environmental clearances, you need to ask, I've done a lot of this, the Department of Agriculture, if they're okay with this. Those range, depending on how much we do and how much you do, between $20,000 and $30,000. And, you know, we roughed out a schedule. If everything was to go well, we would hopeful that you would be completed with this by October. And that includes 4 months of asking people if it's okay. Corps of Engineers, the DNR, Department of Agriculture. You need to get archaeological clearance. There's a lot of environmental clearances. You need to prove to them that it is warranted. We've done that. You need to have construction plans done. We'll need to re-permit those because the permit has expired. That's just submitting them in there.
When you say 20 or 30, you're talking about per project?
Probably, because the sign-offs are different. I think you need to think about water at first and sewer second, because your water project is a tank and you know it. What's your sewer project? I don't know it.
It's lining, but yeah, we don't know. We don't know specifics.
We don't know if it's replacement or lining yet.
And I don't think you need to know that until, frankly, end of the year. We have a year to work on that, develop that. To be able to submit it, to send it in there. Reason for project proposed schedule. I don't know if their cost is on here or not. I think you could send a pre-app in for both. And again, I use the old term, the pre-application, and accelerate the water, and then figure out your sewer, and then maybe decide to do that next. And then you don't have to do them concurrently. You could slow roll the sewer to think about it and identify the project.
And I think I understood that once the project's submitted, it's something that can just be updated every year, right? Okay.
And I know you said they're separate, but can getting one stop you from getting the other?
No,
Two different funds.
Totally separate funds. The other big part of this, and you are in a much different position than you were a while ago. You have to prove that you can pay it back, and to look at your water fund in great detail. And are your water rates high enough to pay off what you borrow? And of course, you're complicated by Illinois American there. They spend a lot of time looking at the financial section to make sure that they agree that you can pay this back. So, like I said,
I hope they're higher.
So there's I think that you
spend that initial like $30,000 or whatever it is, and then we don't get the funding. Can we use the results from all of that to apply again next year?
You could, absolutely. Some of the sign-offs might need to be updated, but if you cross all your T's and dot all your I's, I think you'll be offered the loan. The question is can you maximize minimize the interest rate and maximize the forgiveness?
Well, we won't know the new interest rate until July 1st. Are you hearing the same thing that we're hearing, that 50%? The lady was very bold when I spoke to her. I was shocked.
I've heard in general terms half of what you said, that they're flush with money and come get it. But I've also heard 400,000 is the most you should plan on getting in forgiveness. Does it happen? Maybe. And if it does, I sure like to put you in position to do that. But I've been told don't plan on 50% forgiveness.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know if we can show a $1.6 million loan paid back. Depending on the interest rate, I guess.
And you're not obligated until the very end. They can say, here's your offer, and you go, thanks, but no thanks. Yeah, you spend some time asking everybody and their brother if it's okay with them, but you're not obligated until the very end. Sending in the pre-application doesn't cost you much at all. It's a 2-page form. I'd send it in.
Yeah, we definitely want to do that.
I would think.
Even if that's all, it's more forgiveness than we'll get through any other kind of loan.
Yeah,
it is. And Brian, what I would suggest, and I didn't feel I was prepared to do that tonight, is to provide you proposals for signature consideration and approval if needed. Next meeting, after we maybe sit down with you and go through this checklist, and maybe you were identify, in the past, we've done a lot of the financials for you. We might not be as good at it as you now. and that would save some time and money, depending on if that was something you wanted to dig into. Yeah. To look at some of that stuff. Some of the sign-offs can be duplicated between the two if you elected to go forward. So I think we have an opportunity to really fine-tune a proposal for us to move forward with the real application. But, and again, I think we had here, if we would start that in April. That was just a rough schedule just to be able to talk to you tonight. So and we would still, again, complete this exercise by October. for 2024. So since there's no way you can be done this year, you really are ahead of the game. I don't know that it does anything for you, but I guess the point is you don't need to hurry to spend money on us after you submit this.
Well, I think we definitely want to submit the.
I do too. I would
And that's
strongly
something we can
recommend.
budget for too. We can look for budgeting our engineering costs out.
Or redirect some capital or what have you. The thing that goes through my mind is if I knew, and again, you don't, but if I knew we were going to get 50% forgiveness,
And that's 20 or 30 grand just to submit it.
I think I would argue that,
That's once they come back and tell you, or is that it with the application?
I would bring you that proposal next meeting.
Okay.
are you saying we'd have to spend that between now and the next meeting?
No. I would think you would
You
spend
bring
it in
the
the next
proposal.
meeting in October.
So my point is, if we had some sort of feel that 50% for forgiveness and the rate was going to be approximately what it is, at least 1.5% or lower now, I think I would make the argument that we take some of our current capital and we pay off the existing IPA loan because we've got the money to do it, especially if you kill the trail.
I do wonder though, now the way you're set up, if they'll see that, if they just look at your water fund.
Well, but then I guess my point there would be is we could take the capital that we're setting aside, that $3,500 or a month that we're putting into sewer, right? And we could shift it to water, and we could begin building up the water fund, and showing that we've got the funds to cover it. And again, I know the current loan's 1.5% interest, but if the next loan's about the same, why pay 1.5% for the next year, right? If you've got the funding to do it and then save that money, I don't know. That would be something we would all have to talk about, but it's intriguing, I guess.
So the main reason for this is to gear up for the water tower, right? Correct. That's all we're mainly talking about this.
The water, and if you were to submit for water, you would do it, let's call it a $2 million project. To submit that for assistance to be able to complete that project.
In a perfect world, over a period of time, if we could get the water tower project and then follow that up with a sewer lining project, by the end of 2025 or so, we could have every road touched. We just talked about that. You could have the water tower in place, and you could have every sewer line done.
And new signs.
How much did we raise water last
40%.
over what it was?
Yeah.
And what was that projected cost to cover?
What do we? The minimum
over
went
what
from
it's gonna cost. This is gonna give some profit.
monthly went up $5 to $7 a month. But if we were to go this route, and if we get 50% forgiveness and we pay off the sewer loan, we've got enough capital to fund this project and not change a rate.
I know, that's why I was just
But
wondering
it's-
about, we should have punted for another higher percentage on the water to make it
Well,
look better
we
to
did
cover.
give ourselves a little buffer there. I think it was 50 cents or whatever it was. 50 cents doesn't seem like a lot,
Right.
but
Well, we did that because we just assumed they're gonna do the same thing next year.
Well, the other thing we did
This
too
would
is
have been 2%
we
anyway.
built a new rate based on the higher end of the average. So if the average is lower than, and I think it will be, there's probably going to be some additional funding there. I don't know that for sure, but have we gotten?
And we're finding leaks by the month.
say that again, Jeff.
We're finding leaks by the month too. Seems like, don't know if they're old or new leaks.
Well, and then we're not there yet, but the leak detection guy is going to be here in the first 2 weeks of March, hopefully, weather permitting. So who knows what we find there. All I'm saying is I think as you sit and look at our dollars and if the rates and the forgiveness we're hearing is close or relatively close, for the first time since I've been here 3 years, we have line of sight to pretty significant capital improvements without a whole lot of rate increase, which would be
Not any additional rate increase.
additional rate increase. Yeah.
That's 20 years, right?
She told me 30.
I was going to say, as we were talking today, I think you can go up to 30. Would be your discretion. I don't know that the rates differ, do you?
She said no. I mean, I asked her what the amortization was on the.
Be no reason to do 20.
Right.
Yeah, and I apologize. Some of this I don't do a lot of. My firm is fairly good size. We have folks that are experts in this. I've done one with you guys back then, and I know we've done a lot of these, and it's a bit of a moving target. They've made some changes, and a lot of it is because it's federally based, and so you never know what's coming down the pipeline. So,
Well, that's another point is we've got 2 years before you have an administration change, potentially. And I don't know this for fact, but what I've heard is part of the reason we are where we are is because there's been additional money pumped into the EPA, and so they've got funding in order to. My point is it may have a shelf life.
Well, if they give it to us, we'll have it before then.
Understand?
So I think there's a lot of moving pieces here. It's fairly complicated. We'll try to take it in baby steps and make sure you don't commit to anything. I would say that tonight what you might commit to is having us prepare this for your review and then submittal at your discretion.
Yeah, I think there's 2 things, honestly, Brandon. We got to submit the pre-forms.
Exactly.
And then you come back at the next meeting with a proposal for the water tower. And then if you guys want to do the sewer too, that's fine. But at least the water tower in terms of, and I can follow back up with the lady because when I talked to her, I mean, it sounded like maybe she doesn't know, but it sounded to me like, because I said, well, what are the forgiveness rates? And she said 50 and 30, and then didn't bat an eye. And I was shocked.
And I don't know that I wouldn't argue that at all. I haven't seen it.
If that's real.
Yeah, if that's real.
Now it's $1 million project, not a $2 million project.
Good luck getting that anytime, like you said, anytime soon. Find $1 million.
You're saying finding $1 million bucks from the government or us finding?
Anybody. Yeah, exactly.
What about
can
the
do
sewer
that.
side of things, though? Could we handle both of those loans at the same time?
If the rates are what they say they are, and the forgiveness is what they say it is, we have to change what we're currently allocating capital to. We have to give up on the trail. I got a whole presentation that outlines the whole thing, but yes, we can do it.
So 20 to 30,000 just for the water side of things, or that's a sewer?
That's not in my calculations to this point. That would be new money that I haven't factored in.
And the sewer side's cost about just the same.
Probably maybe a little bit less. I mean, there is some duplication, but not a lot. The thing with the sewer is the water tower, you have a project, you know how much it costs. The sewer, you could right size that. That's what we did last time, was we kind of worked backwards. What can you afford to borrow? And then that's how much sewer lines take that much. Yeah. And so you haven't done that.
Because you could get there with some kind of project.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we kind of worked backwards last time. This time, if you knew exactly what you wanted, we could work forwards, or you could say, this is the most we want to borrow, whatever forgiveness, and then we could create a project for that.
The way I figured it was we paid off the IAPA loan with current surplus capital now. We started putting those dollars every month into future loan payments, so that builds up. We took existing capital that's out there for the trail and some other things, and we brought down the loan amount. We put a down payment and brought down the loan amount, and then we took our existing $14,000 a month capital, and we just reallocated it to pay these 2 loans plus the streets, and we were good. We have less money in the bank, but we're getting more done.
Right. But these 2 categories are essentially what our bank money's for, right? I mean, as far as a big emergency this town can have, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, to me, and then what I did is I took a lot of the savings that I retained and I moved it to water, because if you put in the new tower, you're gonna have line issues, right? That we would have to go fix. So I minimized the sewer excess funding. I think I took it down to like 50 grand. And I did that because, well, if you line every sewer, and we just replaced the major lift stations, we're not gonna have a ton, we shouldn't have a ton of issues on the sewer side.
My table's plastic.
I got it.
Thank you.
Two quick pieces that I missed in the process. I neglected to mention. There's a big list here, and I'm happy to pass some of this around. I have a copy of the checklist, I have a copy of the environmental checklist. You can see just the amount of things that are required. I get it. It's federal money. But there is a public hearing. You have to advertise for it, so there's that time. People come in. I'm sure they'll be beating down the doors to discuss the project because it's allocating public dollars.
Yeah.
So you do have to go through those steps as well to have a public hearing on the community borrowing their money. So I've forgotten that step.
So unless there's debate, file the pre-stuff, put together a proposal on the water tower for the next meeting. We'll go from there.
I think it's a good idea. It's a good way for us to attain this goal without breaking the bank.
Right. Okay, thank you. I don't have anything else on that topic or any others.
Any questions for Brandon? Okay. Abby, it's up to you, ma'am.
I have nothing to report.
I have a question for you. Abby, what does pro rata mean? It's on the ordinance. Your lawyers in your Latin. Excuse me.
Actually, I did not take Latin, but
Why not just say prorated?
Because we're a government.
So it doesn't sound as cool.
Lawyers in their Latin.
That's not as fancy.
That's right.
Thank you.
yeah,
Like on my fragile package.
Latin in terms it's like proportional, I guess.
Because it's 80%. Okay.
Thank you, Abby.
You're very welcome.
Brian.
So under the administrator's report, I think all the big stuff we're covering in the committee reports. There's some other minor stuff. I really wanted to spend my time doing two recognitions. I don't know if you guys remember, but at the beginning of this last year, if you were here, sent a note out to the staff saying we really need to challenge ourselves to look for continuous improvement, to break the way that we do things, to look for new and ways to find things to do better, faster, cheaper. And I wanted to acknowledge two staff people that recently, in my opinion, have done this. Cassandra's one. We're going to talk about Illinois funds in a little bit. I won't get into that because we'll talk about it in a little bit. But she's challenged us on electric aggregation. She's challenged us on the medical benefits. I think she's constantly looking for ways to bring what she's learned and knew from her previous job here to say, does this work here or does it not, and to have us explore it and so forth. And I think that's the right mindset that we have to have if we're going to get where we need to be. So I'm appreciative of that, Cassandra, and grateful for your fresh eyes and you challenging us on how we do things. And then the other thing is just this whole IEPA thing. Roger's not the sewer guy. He's the streets guy. He's not the water guy. He goes to training, but he's sharp enough to sit and listen and hear that there might be changes on those water and sewer sides. And he comes back and he brings it to me, and I'm skeptical because I'm like, well, I've talked to him 1,000 times. I can't imagine it being any different. And he pushed and pushed and pushed, and I finally called and I heard, well, maybe it is a little bit different. So let's run down that path. So again, I think that's the kind of behavior that we want in our staff, and I'm grateful for those two guys. And that doesn't mean, others aren't doing it, and I've got some other examples that we'll share later. But again, I wanted to point those two guys out tonight because I think that's what's really moving us in a positive direction. I'm the one that gets to come here and say, hey, let's do that and let's do this. But those guys are the ones who are coming in here and bending my ear and pushing me to look at new and interesting things. So I'm grateful for that. That's all.
That's it.
Good work.
Committee reports.
Me?
Mr. Chervelli, you're up first.
Usually you announce me and everything. I like it better that way.
Okay. Finance, Mr. Chervelli.
The only thing I actually know about on this is the first one. Me and Cassandra talked about it the other day. We need it in the minutes. We're going to take her off as one of the signers and just have me and Tony, and we talked about that, and Brian. But we didn't realize that was going to stop her from being able to do a lot of the rest of her job, being online and transferring, into different accounts and stuff. So she needs to be kept on. I don't think you've officially been taken off, but we need it in the minutes reflecting that she needs to be kept on as a signer.
Yeah.
And we would also like in the minutes to add Brian as a signer. Make things a little more efficient around here.
So in the minutes, we need to state that all current check signers will be retained, Cassandra, Anthony, and Jeff Chervale, and we'll be adding Brian as an authorized signature for all of the checking accounts.
Checking, two checking savings, yes. Do you want to add, the other one that she asked me about was the safety deposit box. If we wanted to add Brian to that as well, that's up to you.
Yes, we might as well add into everything because we need to do an inventory on that.
And if we do that, then that means that all of us need to go back and re-sign the document.
Right.
And if everybody don't know, every check has 2 sign lines on it. So 2 people have to sign it regardless. So it's not like Cassandra's just going to be in there signing checks to send them wherever.
Well, actually, we'll have an internal process rule where you two sign it. You guys are the normal signers, the 2 board members. We won't touch it. And then the auditors wanted me rather than her since she cuts the checks. And so there'd be a separation of duties. I'm a backup and she is a backup of a backup. But in a perfect world, we won't ever sign. It'll be you guys. But in an
It did just happen the other day where
yeah.
something's got to be done immediately, and Tony got held up at work. And
Yeah, and that's a good thing is because if Jeff gets held up and is out of town or something, and if I'm away on work and we do have an emergency cost that comes up,
we need a way to sign a check.
Yeah, we have no way to sign a check or to get postage out without paying for petty cash and stuff like that. So it definitely will make things a lot easier. So.
And is that it? In the city community.
Yeah.
Does that require a vote? Do we know?
It did not
It
add me.
required a statement by
The mayor.
the mayor.
In the minutes.
Good.
Mr. Chervale?
You take that one, Brian.
Okay, so this is Cassandra brought this up, and I think it's a really interesting conversation. And really, we're looking for just some general direction from the board tonight. But there's this thing called the Illinois Funds. You can go out and look at it. It is a money market account that is available to municipalities and other governmental entities, where you can take money and put it in that account and gain some return on those dollars. So the good news is that it's significantly higher than what we're getting in our current savings for the bank. So theoretically we'd have $1.1 million in our savings that we could move over there. The downside is that even though it's a money market and it's very safe, technically we're putting those dollars at risk. If something went haywire, those dollars could actually return negative.
Technically, we're in the same position where they are now because FDIC regulations only insures up to $250,000, and that's over all of our accounts.
No, I understand. I guess what I'm saying is that it is a money market account. It's not a savings account or what have you. Now, I think in the time that you've been with Germantown, you never saw it earn something less than 1%. But technically, I talked to the attorneys. Yeah, technically, you're investing those dollars, and legally we can. This is one place where we can put those dollars and legally invest them and put those dollars at risk. You're looking at 4% versus less than 1% return on your dollars.
Currently, the interest rate for our savings account is 0.05%. We earned $48 on our $1.1 million last month in interest. The current rate at the Illinois Funds is 4.2%. To put that into perspective, that's a couple $1,000 at least. So
and all the only thing I think we're talking about tonight is you can go out and look up the Illinois Funds. I looked up the people that are in there: Farmington, Peoria, East Peoria. I mean, you name it. Every town you can look at has dollars in there. That doesn't mean that's the right. I'm just saying that there's a lot of people in there. The attorney said it's legally something that we can do. The return is significant. I think the risk is low, but there is risk. For me, just a general question to the board is: do you want us to explore the details of it and bring that back to you, or are you saying at this point now we're not interested in putting those dollars at risk in any way? And we're happy, I'm happy to explore whatever. The other option is there's some high yielding savings accounts you can go out there. It wouldn't be 4%, it might be upper 2s or lower 3s that we could look into. It might be more restrictive in terms of how long you have to leave the dollars in and so forth, like CDs or whatever. But our understanding is at this point is that you can put the dollars in, you can pull them out whenever you want. You can treat it just like a savings account. There's no restrictions.
You don't get taxed on the interest?
No.
If we withdraw it?
No. The Germantown Hills has been using it since before I started there 10 years ago. And they've been using it for 30 years now. So they've never had an issue with it.
Sounds to me like we're late to the party.
That's kind of where I'm at.
I think it's worth checking into at least. Just get the details of it.
I would, in my
Sounds like it's worth checking into. I would like to know, if there are other municipalities that have had issues with it, what those issues were, maybe.
Okay. And I can call around to a few of the other municipalities in the next few days and ask.
I've reached out via email, but I've not heard back. I know West Peoria uses it, and I've not heard back from them. But
my recommendation would be to move out to our savings account, because that's got the majority of our money into it, to the Illinois funds. Because we're not taking out money from there. It's not revolving. It's just sitting there.
Right.
So why are we not earning more money?
Sure.
we knew in a municipality, and granted, January was a good month if you follow the stock market. But their return for that month and their amount that they had in there was more significant that we would by half, probably up by double. But they got $20,000.
Yeah.
For the month of January, we got $50.
Yeah.
Well, based on the stock market in 10 years, it's going to be higher than it is today.
Yeah.
So
So
unless the government crashes, and we're the government. So if that happens, I don't think we're going to work.
All right, we'll look into it. Maybe I can even get like a representative from the Illinois funds to come and chat with us and have some discussion. But it seems like something that maybe we ought to at least look under the hood and see what's going on. I just had a couple of other quick things on finance. You're working on the January financials now. Hopefully we'll have the books closed late this week, early next. And then once the January numbers in, we'll have 9 months of the fiscal year done. And so we built the spreadsheets, but we'll begin building the 23-24 fiscal year budget over the next 30 to 45 days, which I know Cassandra's really excited about.
can't wait.
And that is it?
Yep.
Sheesh.
Sorry. Blame Jeff.
Nothing. When's our next planning and zoning meeting?
Well, we have one scheduled every month, but we haven't had any need to have them, so.
Right. So nothing under planning and zoning.
Nope.
Sanitary and sewer, Mr. Pearson.
I don't think we had anything.
Yeah, I'll defer to Brian if we had anything.
Yeah, I don't think we had anything. And then underwater, I don't think we had any.
No refunds or no credits, no debits, or no adjustments.
No adjustments and no refunds.
Right. And then under invoice, looks like the Jim's truck, the front door left and right, blocking system is having a problem. Of course, it's not under warranty. These are the actuators are failing and causing concern. He went to Zane's and got an estimate to have both of the lock actuators replaced, left and right side, for a total of $828.84, which those actuators are very expensive. Yes. My daughter's Nissan Rogue had to replace the rear actuators, and Nissan and any aftermarket that I could find was $200 or more just for the actuators. That didn't include installing. That was just for the part. So I will entertain a motion that we approve invoice from Zane's to replace the left-hand and right-hand side door actuators on Jim's 2014 Chevy. I have a motion by Pearson.
Second.
Motion by Pearson, second by Sidak. Any further discussion? We'll roll call that. Miller,
Yeah.
Pearson,
Yes.
Charavalli,
Yes.
Sidak,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Just one last thing underwater, the rate, the new rate communication has gone out on Facebook and on the website, and the letters, I think you finished.
They're almost done.
Yeah, almost done. So they should be going out in the next week to each of the homes. So,
And a thank you to Tracy. I stopped in today for my meeting with Brian on that, and she's doing everything that she's normally doing, and she's addressing all these envelopes, folding, stuffing, and everything, and they're just everywhere. So thank you to Tracy for, getting on this and getting all those out. And of course, the new envelopes that we got, I was informed today. Cassandra?
Oh, yeah, they put our address on it, but they forgot to put Village of Hannah City. So it just says 313 North First Street.
So it still has our logo on it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't say Village of Hannah City and then our address. So we're going to give them a call about getting some type of refund so we can, or have them print us some new ones. Buildings grounds, Mr. Weaver.
Nothing to report.
Buildings, or streets and alleys.
We need to get the MFT program approved.
So everybody should have a copy of the MFT proposal. And in the copy that you have, the seal coat on page 2, the seal coat aggregate and the bit material seal coat are reversed. We have corrected that on the original copies. Brandon was able to get that corrected, so those two numbers or two line items are switched by name. Those have been corrected. It would be for a total amount of $95,500 for our MFT fund beginning 5/1/23 to 04/30/24.
So moved.
Motion by Charavalli. Do I have a second? Second by Weaver. Any further discussions or concerns on this? Everybody knows what we're voting on. This is for our MFT for our roads.
you guys know everything you're supposed to sign and where to send it and all that.
I'll take all those with me after you sign, you sign.
I already signed. Yes, I did. Just now.
And that's only 3,000 more than last year.
Yes.
The ordinances, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Nice.
we'll roll call that. Pearson,
Yes.
Charavalli,
Yes.
Sidak,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Miller. Motion carries.
That's all I have.
Thank you. CEDC, Mr. Sidak.
All right, so we've got a big ordinance. It's not really anything drastic. It's just our normal redistribution of our TIF funds to the various taxing bodies. It looks like if I read this correctly, the dollar amount is $17,040.32. That's what will be going to the treasurer of Peoria County for disbursement to the taxing bodies.
Just a reminder, most of that in the original TIP agreement is 80% of the residential increase gets redistributed back to the other taxing bodies.
Well, that's the all taxing body.
Correct. We keep some. Yes, that's correct.
We got to keep a portion of that.
Correct.
17,000 because we're a taxing body, so we get for that back.
Yeah, so the good news is last year, I think the TIF was, we made $6,000 and we redistributed, after our costs, we redistributed about $8,000 back. And so we had to borrow $2 from the BDD. This year, we've got around $23,000, I think, in the account, and we're redistributing back $17,000. So we're positive $6,000. So not only is the amount going up, but we're moving in the positive direction in terms of variance.
And of that 17,000, we are actually getting back 1,734.92 cents.
On your last page of the ordinance, there's a breakdown by the taxing bodies in the taxing district that those go back to. So Farmington Central Community School District 265, Farmington Library, Metro Airport, Village of Hannah City Park District, ICC, Logan Township, Logan Trevoli Fire Department, Logan Trevoli MTAD. What is that taxing body?
No idea.
What is it? Something
Logan
medical?
Trevoli MTAD.
I guess.
Looks like a medical abbreviation to me.
Withhold their $38.
Peoria County Soil and Water, and then Logan Township Road and Bridge.
It must be medical transport. So
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
we're not giving them a whole lot.
Do we really?
I'd rather give them the money than ICC.
We're only giving Peoria County Water 80 cents.
How far does ICC's taxes go?
Up to the,
Well, we're still
School,
Peoria
I think.
County, so.
Yeah, all of Peoria County?
I
it
believe
goes
so.
right up to Lightfoot Road.
Right where the sign is, where you leave Peoria County?
Yeah, because anybody in Peoria County is eligible as a in district student for ICC.
Okay.
So I propose we adopt an ordinance declaring surplus revenue in the Hannah City TIF District, special tax allocation fund, and authorizing payment of that surplus revenue to the Peoria County Treasurer for distributions to affected taxing districts on a pro rata basis for tax year 2021 payable 2022. Year of our Lord.
Second.
A motion by Sidak, a second by Chair Avali. Any further discussion? Ordinance will be 23-02-01. And we'll roll call that. Chair Avali,
Yes.
or Sidak,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Pearson,
Yes.
motion carries.
Then after that, this isn't up for a vote. It's just part of our agreement with the coffee can. It's our reimbursement of their sales tax to the tune of $2,024.97. That's just automatic. It's part of our agreement. So just bring you in the loop. We've got a nice little chart on the back talking about the other disbursements.
I can tell you, if you're interested, I've got the data right here. So this shows the total verifiable eligible project costs currently is at $120,000. Total reimbursements paid is $93,601. So balance of eligible project cost is $26,398.09 to the coffee can.
And that's what we have left.
Well, that 120 number, if the coffee can can submit eligible expenses up to the max of 245. So there's another 125 that they can submit dollars for. But of the dollars that have been submitted, 120, total reimbursement is 93. So there's an additional 26 outstanding, if that makes sense. But they'll continue to submit expenses up to, I'm sure, the max.
And we're also thinking about an open forum for the redevelopment fund, town hall, if you will. And we're looking at the 21st, which would be the Tuesday after the next, after
I think it's our next meeting.
next meeting.
That's our next meeting. We would hold it at 6 o'clock. Prior to opening the board meeting, we would have a open meeting forum. People could get online or be in person to ask questions, reference the program.
Either the commercial or residential programs that we're sending grant money out for. I'd have the Jacob and Klein people here so we can answer questions, and even if the board, if we had questions, that we can ask them and so forth. Not that we'll do that every year, but I thought this first year it might be nice. And just FYI, I've gotten 2 grants in, both residential at this point. First time we'll review grants, what we say, what's the meeting? April 11th is the next meeting. So, next CEDC meeting.
Exciting. That's all I have for community and economic development. That is it.
It kind of, abbreviation's kind of like a side deck, kind of. If you say it, then said it.
Thank you, Mr. Sidak. Administration report, Mr. Miller.
Administration. The police call or fire calls are from 1:15 to 2:04. There's 10 calls altogether. Nothing really alarming, just normal fire calls. Falls, sick people.
Then we had a call here.
We did.
313 North First Street, the 19th of January. Suspicious.
Oh, we did. There was a truck over blocking the bulk water for about 2 hours. They locked their keys in the truck. And we couldn't find anybody to figure out what had happened or anything, but we called Sheriff's Department. They said they'd send somebody out, and then they finally came back, and we figured it out, and they got in the truck. So yeah, that was it.
Anything else, Mr. Miller? Not on that. I got some questions though.
Okay.
I maybe misunderstood what he said. The permits or whatever for fixing up your houses and stuff.
The applications.
Is anybody? What's traffic on that? Is it 2?
We had 2 residential.
I've got 2 residential in. I've had calls on commercial, but have none submitted at this point. But we send a reminder communication out every week, and they know that we won't start reviewing them until the middle of April. So my guess is people are taking their time to get them in.
That's curious.
Yep.
And the signs, our town signs coming in and out of town.
So I can't remember how much we talked about here. The monument signs are not allowed because of and so we got a quote on just putting the aluminum, the better looking signs in the existing brackets, the existing frames. That bid was $4,600, something like that. So significantly cheaper than the $30,000 we were looking at spending. We would do all 4 rather than just 2. And at this point, all we're really looking at doing is once the weather gets a little nicer, I'm going to have Roger go out and just make sure there's no poles that need to be replaced in that process. And then
Structural issues.
Yeah,
4.
for all 4 of them.
And City Glassford, 116 East, 116 West.
And right in front here.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I was wondering where our 4th entrance of town was.
And then, so probably what'll happen is we'll have the CEDC meets in April. I'll review it with them. If they want to do it, then they'll make a recommendation to the board to spend the money to do it. And by that time, we should know if there's any structural issues with the cost associated with that. Roger's also going to look at lighting, and we'll probably pick one light and try it and see how it looks and works with the batteries and the stuff we can buy. But I think that'll move forward if the CEDC wants to. And then one other thing that we didn't talk about under buildings and grounds, but we had some issues with a guy coming here and giving me some letters that were not personally threatening, but I guess legally threatening, that they were not valid.
Is this Mr. Marks?
No. Anyway, long story short, we decided to put in some security cameras. We bought 3. There's one in the lobby now. And we put a surveillance sign out front, and we'll eventually put one on the front of the building and the back of the building, and eventually do the other buildings as well. Just in case something ever were to happen, we would have a record of that, and people would know that the buildings are being surveilled. So
This was about village business?
not
So
really.
the letter claimed, but
One letter was a cease and desist, and the other letter, and they were handwritten. It was clear that the individual was,
Having some mental capacity issues, possibly.
yeah. And so we did all the right things. We followed up with the police, and we found out all the history and talked to the sheriff's department and so forth. And but he's in town on occasion, and so when he is and when we see him, we make sure if the girls are here by themselves that we lock up. And again, I don't think anything's going to happen. We're just taking extra precaution.
Anything?
That's it.
Other business, couple things. Mid-Century reached out to me today, early this afternoon. In fact, I just got a follow-up email from them. They want to see about doing talks about finishing up the fiber hoods here in town. So he is passing that on to their marketing person, and I will talk to them tomorrow to find out what is needed on that and what they want to try to do.
If they don't get their percentage, or they're just
I don't know.
backing up and heading out.
They've already done a pretty good investment as far as laying the groundwork through town. So,
Are they wanting to come to a meeting, or?
no, he just wanted to have a meeting. So, and that's Aaron. If most of you don't know, I worked on this for 2 or 3 years prior to while I was still on the board, working with Mid-Century Fiber and other fiber companies, trying to get them in town. And finally Mid-Century said, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to do a project, and now we got the one fiber hood in town that's up and running. So it'll be nice to sit down with them and actually be able to ask them more questions, because they should have taken out all the old naval housing, the senior homes over here. Like we asked them to take those out of there. They said they did, but the percentage never went up.
Out of the zone.
So it doesn't make any sense if they took them all out. They should at least go up quite a bit for all those houses over there, because the only place that would actually probably get it would be the rec center. So there's only be really one address over there that would be eligible, since most of those are on fixed incomes anyway. So
Makes sense.
Mid-Century, already talked about the thank you for Tracy. Last thing that I have to bring before the board is, again, as I said during our opening statement, Deb Gibson, she was a previous clerk and board member for the Village of Hannah City, passed away Saturday at 7:10 p.m. I would entertain a motion that we go ahead. Is it normally $40, Rob? 40 or 60? 50? 50, go ahead and do a $50 donation in Deb's name to the American Cancer Society in honor of Deb and her family. I'm assuming that she had cancer of the liver, the two foundations, the National Liver Foundation or the American Cancer Society. And Deb was, if those of you didn't know Deb, she worked she worked here, she worked in Peoria. She also worked at Malbar Vet for many years out there.
She lives next door to Caleb.
She lived next door to Caleb, exactly.
I never knew what her last name was.
Yeah, she lived next door to Caleb. Of course, Fred lived there before Caleb, so she was a big part of the community for a long time. So
I ran into her at Dollar General several months ago. She said she had liver problems with it.
Yeah, so our well wishes go to her husband Don and to their family during this trying time. There are no arrangements that are been made yet. Everything will be decided. Will be cremated and things will be figured out in the spring. So I don't need a motion. We'll just do a $50 donation to American Society in honor of Deb Gibson. Anything else to come before the board? Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Ron. Thanks, Dan.
Bye.
Thank you.